Some kicks, some snares, a few lingering effects. The BPM slows down, the music stretches out until the crowd around you starts clapping and cheering, thanking the DJ for the set. The party is over. You grab your coat from the lockers and find your friends by the club's exit. It's almost noon, the sun is out, birds are singing, and a soft breeze brushes against your skin. No one really wants to go home, so you decide to wander through the city, looking for a place to land, to come down from the night you've just lived. After walking for a while, one of your friends remembers that GIMIC radio should be open by now, so you head that way. You pass by the flea market at Place du Jeu de Balle, the city slowly waking up around you. You then step inside. A podcast is about to start. And the question you hear is, what does institutionalization do to community spaces and practices? Hello everyone, thank you for joining in, tuning in. Welcome to my fourth and last podcast of Safer Hours, a discovery of Brussels nightlife. This podcast I'm doing here at GIMIC in the scope of my research for my master thesis, which is about safer spaces in nightlife in Brussels, in clubbing especially, specifically. Today, to answer the question you've heard in the introduction, I'm joined by two lovely people, Sarah Lovisetto.
Hello, everybody. Institutionalization. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, sweet. And Nathan Pujadas from Brussels by Night. Sarah is from Osmos Collective and Nathan from Brussels by Night. Hello.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Institutionalization? That's the first mistake for me.
It's gonna be fine. Maybe we'll switch to French for that word specifically. Before starting the conversation, I always try to put back some theory and history before starting it to put some context. And so, I want to reminder like the origins of electronic music in Belgium. Belgium has always been a major space for experimentation and diffusion in the diffusion of that type of music. For example, New Beat is the perfect example of this. It was created before techno, as we understand it, even existed, and was played alongside Kraftwerk's tunes in Detroit in the 80s. For the auditors to realize how major electronic music was at this time in Belgium, the group composed of Dan Laxman, Marc Moulin, and Michel Mours, called Telex, represented Belgium at Eurovision. Cancel. In 1980 with a track called Eurovision. You should check it out. It's a banger. It's pretty fun also. And over the decades and with the decades and with the political repression of the scene, the place Belgium had in electronic music globally shrunk, but stayed very much alive locally and important in the alternative scenes. For example, I remember that when I was a child, my French cousins, who are now in the late 30s and 40s, were going out a lot, were going out a lot at the time, in the 2000s, were telling me that Belgium was where real electronic music lovers were going out. Not in Paris, not in Amsterdam, not even in Berlin, but Belgium. And so it really stuck with me and made me have another look on Belgium as hosting, yes, the capital of Europe, but also maybe one of electronic music. Additionally, about how much clubs and nightlife are of utmost importance for Brussels. The Brussels Night Council, a public institution part of Visit Brussels that was created in 2022, conducted a research in 2023 showing that 78% of Brussels inhabitants go out at night several times a month, and that 67 of those in nightclubs. That same year, thanks to the work of Brussels by Night, Brussels clubbing was recognized as part of the immaterial patrimony of the city. This label coming after years of illegal dispute around the legitimacy of clubs in Brussels over new neighbors. And about this, in like the past weeks, a new principle was voted and adopted in Parliament, the agent of change principle, meaning that new residents moving near existing nightclubs must take responsibility for sound insulation and potential noise exposure. Property developers are required to anticipate and mitigate acoustic impacts in advance. Buyers, it's like I took it from the website. Yeah, buyers and tenants must be informed if they're moving close to nightlife venues, but at the same time, new clubs entering residential areas must also ensure that they respect existing neighbors. All of this to say that Brussels is getting more, Brussels clubbing is getting more and more recognized, and especially by the city and by institutions. And so we are going to talk a lot about institutionalization. And so what is
Institutionalization.
Thank you.
Yes, there was 10 minutes of that, so I'm ready.
It's going to be intense. And so we mean by that the moment when a practice, something that was informal, community-based, starts being integrated into formal structures, policies, funding systems, legal frameworks, and management norms. It can mean public recognition, cultural legitimacy, but also standardization. Some authors like Natalie Eynick, who's pretty problematic, but shared some interesting thoughts in a book she co-edited with Roberta Shapiro, a book called De l'artification, about the concept of artification, which is the process through which practice can become recognized as art, with its own institution, its own audiences, and its own rules. But this recognition can also come at a cost, the gradual loss of its subversive potential and its authenticity. And so I feel like this is a global understanding of how what's happening right now. In electronic music right now, what used to be alternative, experimental, even marginal, is becoming more and more normalized, professionalized, and sometimes integrated into markets and tourism dynamics. And so this raises loads of questions about how, in practice, sub and countercultures like the one that is electronic music and care and safety practices, how can they stay authentic during these processes of patrimonialisation?
You made it.
Yeah, I
You're
made
alive.
it.
You're still alive.
I'm still alive and well. But so now that we've did that little introduction, let's start the discussion. Nathan, I want to ask you first, what brought you to work at Brussels by Night, and how would you define their purpose as an association?
It was a bit of it was a lot of luck, I would say, because I'm not from Brussels. I'm from France. I'm from Lyon, and I arrived in Brussels because I was really just attracted to the city, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And then, I had the chance to run into the job offer at Brussels by Night, and it was a good combination between what I did before, like being in collectives, launching parties, doing production management, but also before that, having made some lobbying and some institutional stuff, yeah, which I didn't like because of the purpose and the topic on which one was I was working on. So advocating for nightlife was a bit of a good match for me, and then I got the job, luckily. And so now it's been 3 years that I'm working for Brussels by Night. We are working.
Period, congrats.
Thank
And
you.
what's the purpose as an association, Brussels by Night?
So I saw in your questions that of course we were like seen as Brussels by Night Federation at the beginning. Yeah. So that's a good example. Now it's much more Brussels by Night. We like consider ourselves with the team also working at Brussels by Night more like a platform or a network. Because we started with the COVID, of course advocating for clubs and for reopenings, and it was a lot about the venues at the beginning and defending the venues. But then, like when I arrived in 2023, I would say, We wanted to add a lot of, and we worked a lot on harm reduction,
Yeah.
starting from 2022. And so it was like a wide range of topics. It was workshops. It was working for the public too. We didn't see this kind of federation bit like a corporate thing, like being super adapted to the new form of Brussels by Night, and we were working on a wide range of topic. And now we have 55 members, a lot of collectives.
Yeah.
So it was a way for us to be identified a bit more as a network than as something just made for the venues and for like the big clubs, you know.
Okay, got it. Interesting. Thank you for.
So we are working on a lot of
yeah,
topics,
a
like
bunch of
different
stuff.
yeah, a bunch of talks. Yeah.
And Sarah, on your side, you're part of Osmose, which is, for the people that don't know it, one of the most recognized in the industry care and safety collective. And so I was wondering, what made you start doing safety and care in nightlife?
Hello again, everybody. Thanks again for the invitation. I'm not really used to talking on radio, but it's a super good exercise. So what it made, I think I need to put a part of my personal experience as a woman, as a citizen, as a part of the society. I was always been very sensitive to the question of justice and injustice, and for me, and through also my personal experience, I always developed this sensitivity. And then also thanks to my experience, I'm a daughter of two great music artists, or at least like music transmitter. And both my brothers are DJs, so I really, since a really young age,
you evolved in
the music, but really broadly. My mom is from Republic Dominican, so I grew up with salsa, merengue, bachata. Then my father, in the 70s, started with the collection of classic rock, so I grew up with Van Halen, Deep Purple, all these. And then with my brother, my oldest, I discovered everything that was Afrobeat, reggae, and with the other one, everything that is concerning electronics. So I receive a big heritage, and I don't give it for granted, because it shaped a lot also the person that I am and the curiosity that I had for this culture. And when I'm here in Brussels, living since 13 years, and I was able to enter a lot on the social cultural environment. Till a moment, I was in Zone Klopper, that is a occupied space that receives subsidies to be able also to welcome refugees. And I started to do prevention and care there. So in a squat, and it's also in a squat where I did my first party. So it's a circle of events. And in the same year, on 2022, for the first time in Belgium, the city of Brussels create a subsidies, an appel à projet, a call for project, for all people, association, or also just people that wanted, they have a project that they were fighting against the sexual violence and harassment in nightlife. So it was really specific to nightlife, was the first time, and I got
you got the job.
I got the opportunity. I got the money.
You got the money,
I got the money,
yeah.
And I create my job. It's
okay,
different.
interesting.
But I will say that it's really like also a bit of luck, a bit of the fact that there is a movement is already with the Ballons Tombar.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later.
Ballons Tombar, but also Me Too, and a lot of things that maybe are less recognized, and we talk less about it because are less maybe marketable or aesthetic. But care exists way before that we are talking about. I have the sensation that sometimes certain practices, they are recognized just, they exist just if they are recognized in a bigger thing. But actually it's not that, but I think that we will go back.
We'll circle back to this. For sure. And so, I wanted to know like kind of your position about institutionalization, thank you, of care practices in nightlife here in Brussels, and what are the differences between the Brussels by Night care team and the work you do with the Osmose? Because I feel like Brussels by Night is very much more institutionalized than I feel. I mean, you can tell me this I'm wrong. And Osmose, which is still more connected to alternative scenes. God.
If I might,
Yeah.
also thanks for the introduction. I think it's very important always to locate it historically what we are talking about. And for me, it's also very important to also define the words for, so thank you for definition of the institutionalization. But for me, it's also important to add something else.
Go for it.
Because from this definition, I think that there is something that we didn't talk about that for me is a bit more controversial than the institutionalization. That is cultural appropriation. And cultural appropriation shaped the way how certain practices are taken, meaning that here in Belgium, it's not Belgium that create electronic music or techno.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a black music
Yeah.
that comes from the USA and
From Detroit.
And what exactly? But what Belgium did is that it shaped in different, it transformed this culture, but it took something from this culture. And a lot of times, when there are care practices, but also other things, what we appropriate is the aesthetic instead of the political context that produced these practices. And that's why there is a collision. And so for me it was important to do that, because for me the problem is not institutionalization. Institutionalization does a lot, can create resources, can create protection, can create recognition, and it's true that also can create standardization and can create other things. I mean that there's
a loss of authenticity.
Exactly, there is dark and light, like in a club. Institutionalization is this, and at the same time, the underground, there is a lot of nice, but there is also a lot of bad. So for me, what it matters is not really to put in opposition institutionalization and underground, but to find like a field that is a common field, and actually to not exclude one of another or to choose one of another, because like this we continue repeating the same things, exclusion. So I think, just to reply to your question and not to monopolize this podcast, is that Osmose and me in my career practices, I wanted to go back of the origins. The origins meaning that a lot of what we receive is thanks to the movement of queer people, of la classe ouvrière, of feminism. I think just about le SIDA, HIV, is thanks to all the movement of people that they fight against that. And why? Because the institution, it was there, but was violent. And there was a reply coming from, especially in Paris. That's why Paris was also very important for the music scene. But because queer collective, they fight in the 90s for this, and they arrived to create spaces where we could express all this anger of this absence and violence of the system, but also to create hope. And so for me, what I'm doing with Osmose is not just to create a job, but also to share a notion, because care is not just a job that we do, it's something that is like glasses, is a way that we decide to see the world and how we act on it. So with Osmose, there is really like a pragmatic
going back to the roots.
Exactly, a pragmatic way to from values create protocols, but pragmatic way of live values and share values and create community and create also new competencies. Okay,
sweet. Thank you for putting that into the definition and for the precision. And you, Nathan, do you agree? Do you like not agree? Like, totally, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Sarah said. Like if I can like add something, and being the continuum of what you said, it's true that like if we are talking about institutionalization, meaning like having money to implement care practices and to be able to do it, it's true that the state or like the public authority is repairing something it creates at the very beginning. So I totally agree with that. If I'm talking about Brussels by Night, all this like, is the care team institutionalized or not? I agree also with you, because maybe the visibility of the care team, which is maybe 20% of our harm reduction work, because there are trainings, there are a lot of things before that, and the staff needs to be trained. There are like some, like just like protocols, writing, charters. Also, not just about harm reduction, of course, discriminations. But if we are talking about like care teams in this question particularly, it was really interesting for us in 2022 to be able to say, okay, of course, it comes for minorities, queer communities, communities in general, marginalized people. But how is it possible with the money, with the public money, to try to implement the topic for organizers or public or audiences or crowds that doesn't even know the word care, you know? And for us, we worked with a lot of course, it was a lot of co-building. The protocols we did was a lot in co-building, Plan Sacha, Modus Vivendi, Osmose, a lot of structures. And the way we implemented it throughout the care teams and on the field is to work either with little structures, nights, like underground parties and stuff like this at the beginning and still now, but also big open airs, big structures, working on like a 1 month plan for a festival. So for us, if institutionalization is a word meaning like having money from the public authorities to do it, yeah, we are supported by public authorities, and it's super important. We don't have enough, but it's super important, and it's something we want to build and we want to continue. But I have to say maybe something that is interesting for this question is that our support at Brussels by Night comes at maybe 60 or 70% for harm reduction. So institutionalization is for the state for now, it's throughout this topic. So for us, it's super important to work on it. And if it means being institutionalized, I mean, it's okay, because for urban planning, for like if I go to FWB or COCOF saying that we need money for artists in nightlife, for collectives, like in terms of creation, installation for venues, supporting venues, we don't have any money for that. So public authorities are giving a bit of money, not enough, but a bit of money for harm reduction. So that's the way of having also the savoir-faire recognized.
Yeah, that was like a question I wanted to ask after, was who gets the benefits of this institutionalization? The communities, the clubs, or the city itself, as in a way of, do they do this because they really want to make a change, or they want to market the city as safer, and what does it implement? Nathan?
I think that it's always hard to know like politics, you know, what they really want. But in the case of the city of Brussels, it's interesting to see that they were the first one for us to support the job of the harm reduction manager at Brussels by Night. And since then, it benefit for, I would say, the network and the scene in general, the person who we work with, because we made a lot of work, we had a lot of like research, co-building, as I said, but it's just tools, and it's just like, if you want to like implement these practices, we can help you. But you can adapt that to your crowd, your public, your communities. So there has not been one moment where the city said you have to do this way or this way on the topic of harm reduction. So that's pretty positive, I would say. Even though, of course, it's good publicity for them, of course. But in the example of the city, we do like a report, annual report and stuff like this, but we do it with the scene, we do it co-building
independently from the city.
There's not a checklist, because I saw in your question like this matter of like having checklist and having no subsidy, but you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. For now, in Brussels, in the case of Brussels by Night, we have a certain freedom of doing things with the scene, for the scene, and for the people who want it. And it's super interesting also to work on the topic with like, I don't know, Jeux d'hiver, Mirano. It seems like super hard to hear, and they are not perfect, of course, these kind of structures. But I think sometimes we are also a bit in a bubble in electronic music.
Yeah, for
sometimes. Sure. So it's super interesting to work and
to go outside of it
talk,
and
just talk to them and say, do you know what is care? Do you know what is like trying to take care of your audience? And that's what we try to do, because we have a lot of like partners, I would say. So,
Okay.
but it's hard sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And Sarah, do you want to add something on this?
Um, personally, I don't see the thing so binary. I mean, sometimes, I don't care which are your reason, but sometimes the important is just the visibility.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it, and then let's see. And I think that it also helps to develop your capacity of analysis, your pensée critique, like you don't have to take everything that arrive like this, even though in a capitalistic society where we are so overwhelmed by so many things that it can be difficult sometimes to understand where there is a bit the truth. But I think also this kind of thing, you decide where you want to put, I personally think that there is like in everywhere, like a lot of care, like pink washing. I mean, again, for me, is really more linked to the cultural appropriation than the institutionalization. And the cultural appropriation has always have been like this. We take just the aesthetic, what can be, create a marketing, and we forget the political, baggage.
Essence,
but in this political baggage, there are people, and these people are invisibilized, because how you don't take this side, you don't take a lot of things, a lot of practices, a lot of people. So yes, there is still this repetition, and that's why for me, to go back to the institutionalization, the problem for me is not the institutionalization, but is by who we do by who, at what cost, who is the person, who is the one that needs to decide, who we with who we will talk, who are the ones that are concerned and they can actually give us a strategy. This for me is the thing that is a bit more problematic, because the people that they decide are always the same, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And also another other aspect of this, because you talked about Jeux d'hiver, etc., and that kind of like more mainstream or clubs. Every club works differently, has a different public, has a different way of approaching partying, but also care, as you said, and safety. And so do the formalization of care practices, in which ways can it hinder the flexibility, the spaces, the different space with the different crowds need to adapt like these care and safety practices? Do you understand the question, or?
I think so. First of all, by 5-6 years working in this environment, but also with this specific role, and by working in so many different club, festival, collective, I don't think that is also different, the public that we have. And is a nice thing also. And from the other side, but you can see actually that there is that the scene is built and is more accessible for certain kind of people yet, because I really want to underline there is way more than clubs and festival. There are still so many places that you don't even know that are still doing a lot of parties, just that maybe it's not the music that people talk about, maybe it's not the space that is the cool queer, because there is also that, but actually there is still a lot of this scene, what for me, what I see is that for sure every organization create a product, and every product attracts different energy, vibes, and people, but this doesn't have to do with a workflow and protocol, meaning that, okay, is an organic thing. We work in interaction with people. People change because people are part of society. The society of today will not be the society of 2 years, you know, and I see even in my job, the way how I work is not at all the way how I was used to work 2 years ago. So there is a lot of evolution, but it doesn't mean that is improvised or there is not a structure that has to be in there.
And which type of structure would you recommend? Because for the like clubs maybe that are listening, we don't know.
But for me, sincerely, we talk a lot about care, but for me there is also security. I could close almost all the places that are here in Belgium, Brussels, because they don't respect security
measures, like norms. Yeah.
But when I say like they don't respect, like there are huge like security exits that are completely blocked or not present, evacuation plan that is not dated, people that security agents that are called security agents that actually they don't have any train in security, so they don't know how to do reduction of risk of fire, they don't know how to do an evacuation plan. For example, all these things are things that in my team we did it and we trained for that, but not because I woke up one day and I say, oh my God, I want to do plan of evacuation. I don't care about this. But when you see that there is an absence, and there were, I was talking also before, the practices, they erase where there is violence and absence. When you see around you that there is absence, you start to create something. And in that way, we implement a way that is care, but on the care, there is a big dimension. It's not just let's be empathic and listen to somebody. No, it's way wider. And for me, the big problem of the invisibilization of the nightlife, and also when we talk about the nightlife world, meaning that there is another world. No, there is just one word. But this kind of way to talk create a narrative where actually we don't see a lot of things, and things that normally we will do by the day, during the night we don't do. The most of the people that work during the night, they don't have contracts, or they have contracts that are super precarious. There are people that are they're being paid, the salary are super low. There is a lot of consumption because you're the nightlife, so it means that certain rules are not applied anymore. So that's why I think that we should consider the work in the nightlife as a real job, and to understand that the nightlife is just a temporality, is not another dimension.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the jobs. Nathan, do you have something to add on this? But like the framework of which framework would you recommend to put in place for either like more institutionalization or just for the clubs right now to bring back care? Like should they implement care and safety in their spaces?
I agree with Sarah on the fact that you can see if you have someone that like a club or a structure that didn't have any practices in terms of care. You can see, we talk to a lot of different structures and a lot of different clubs. You can see when someone is like wanting to take care of the staff, for example, at the very beginning.
Yeah.
You can really feel that, and that's our job to feel that, to try to not adapt, I would say, because you can't adapt. You can adapt care practices, but you can adapt someone who just doesn't want to work on the topic. So it arrived sometimes that we just like cut the collaboration with some clubs because they were just like blind on the topic, and so. For me, like there's no like one typical framework. Of course, we really need to talk with them. To talk, of course, there are like the crowds are not so different, but you can see sometimes that if you are talking to a director, like a club director, mostly men, of course. Well,
obviously,
well, you will really see quickly if what you can like add on the first year of collaboration, or you can really see how you can implement something on the first year. Will it be like a complete framework? No. If I'm talking about someone that like didn't even think about it, well, you take it step by step, and then you also talk with the team, you also talk with the staff, you also we went like clubbing in these kind of structures to see how it is with the security also. So it's all about implementing care, like not forcing, but trying to make them understand it's important, even for the audiences, because sometimes it's not because a public is like going to a mainstream club that people in the club doesn't want to be like taken care of. So it's adapting, but I would say it's really like you have a lot of different aspects of it when you are talking to someone.
Like to each club, each like a way of approaching it.
I feel like
and so on the jobs of nightlife workers, but also care and safety workers, especially care and safety workers, they mostly arrived in Belgium since Balance ton Bar, as we said in the beginning, so in 2021, 2022. And I was wondering, because it's like such young, new jobs, and you told that there were like no protections, like really sometimes like no contracts and stuff. What do fuck, I lost my question.
to talk about the care team status or like the job of care
I
team,
want
or
to talk
in
about this
general?
and how we can formalize it and how it impacts authenticity in it, and also that's it actually. I lost my thought. Sarah? Nathan? Sarah.
Again, surprised me to see all this binarity because again, for me, it's not that the care, presence, and the recognize and give a status to workers as for sure goes directly against the authenticity. For me, are not one doesn't exclude the other one, but again, it depends of how you do this job. Again, is for me is always appropriation, you know, when you appropriate and you just take one side and is more into an aesthetic than actually the essence. For sure there will be less authenticity, but this doesn't depend from the recognition and the status of the workers. And why for me is important the status of the workers, because actually is also a really good method to see really the place of the care in organization. I think that Nathan said something that I relate a lot. I think that to change, you need to will to change. And to will to change, it comes from knowledge. That's why I think this kind of podcast and the fact that we need to talk more about this word, to talk more about what is care, what is, like a community, what is to create care practices that goes also beyond and above the nightlife environment. And I think that we are not used anymore to talk about this. We are in a moment in the society where there are so many horrible things happening that we are hopeless. We don't talk anymore about love, and I'm not talking about the romantic conception of it. In our speech that is political or of social economy, we don't talk about anymore these kind of things that actually help us to create different narratives, because when you see that the narrative is always the same, you think that there is not actually improvement, etc. For sure is a new job, but let's just stop a second and see. From 2022, today is 2026, 4 years. 4 years is really not a lot.
Yeah,
in 4
super
years,
short.
in 4 years, how many collective they were created to do this job? How many? And
A
then
lot.
not just that, like from in 4 years of this new job, they've been created new training, like new competencies were created coming from that. Like 4 years ago, we were not talking about consent. We were not talking about inclusivity in the electronic scene. And also the language, it changed. And sometimes I feel that this capitalistic way is also touch this, that we want the result directly. And I think that we don't have to focus on the finality, but in the process, you know. And in this process, the care, it seems so nice. The care is a fucking, it's horrible. I mean, that is hard.
Yeah.
It's draining. It's super hard. You need to question everything. Also, the things that are good, because if they can be better,
yeah,
you
always.
know? So it's a lot of energy, and that's why I think that sometimes can be a problem. Is that sometimes not everybody are ready to put this energy. That's why I think collective and structure as Brussels by Night, they might intervene there. But I think that the base of things is to recreate new narratives around this.
Nathan?
Yeah, super interesting, and I agree. Like, I thought about in the team, and what has been used also by Brussels by Night as also an advocacy argument for public policies, is that when we are talking about like alcohol, in, for example, Campaign Bob, it's like a 20-year campaign. And it doesn't even like we don't have like we have results, but like of course people maybe there are less driving after a night, but still there are like a lot of problems. And it's been 20 years, and that there have been so many organizations, so many people working on the topic. So 4 years in Brussels, it's like it's nothing.
It's nothing.
And something that is a bit like annoying for me when I try to advocate and to when I do meetings with public policies and to say that we need more money, like not just Brussels by Night, but in general to co-construct with like expertise from one to another association, a lot of structure, as Sarah said. I see, and of course the context of the world in general, but I see that they are slowly beginning to have some, not checklist, but like try to have like numbers. Like efficiency. Oh, is it efficient? Is it like, oh, we give you money, but like, is it really like?
Is it really working?
Is
like
it really
enough?
working?
And,
4 years. Like, if they ask me the question, maybe in 30 years, I would say, but then there has been a lot of people saved in parties, and there have been a lot of people that were feeling well. But this is like,
no,
there's a lot to say, but there was one thing also about in your questions that was super interesting, and it was the beginning of what Sarah said. Super interesting that this, like, not trying to make like recognizing or keeping
binarity of
when we talk about care teams, because it was also the topic. You mentioned the workshop we did because we are working maybe on a status.
Just so they know, last year I was invited by Brussels by Night and Visit Brussels to a workshop about what is a care team, and the main final point of that discussion was like, it's hard to define because there's so many aspects. There's like so many aspects, but like from a legal standpoint. But from a legal standpoint, it's like really hard to like compass the whole thing. And also the main thing was that many structures were like, we don't want to be like included in like a very legal framework because. We don't have the money for the trainings. We don't like there's that whole like practice of like community practice that they felt like they were losing. Sarah seems that not agree, but I mean that's why we are talking about it. Like I want to have your opinion on this, and so yeah, it's so because we were talking about the care team status.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this, when I say we are working on, it's not that we are for it, but we are like asking the question like with everyone to try to see if it's something like the scene wants, if it's like if there's gonna be like also some financial helps for the venues and for the structures to be able to support the cost when it's legally recognized, if it's recognized. But the interesting thing was like I when we launched that discussions with other cities of Belgium and with the federal, it was because we like had some situations where I thought about like the volunteers of some like our care teams, but not just our care teams. And in terms of like there was an incident in terms of responsibility. What the fuck? Like it was a lot of question raised.
Sarah agrees.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm saying recognizing you can keep your authenticity, but having some protection sometimes
Yeah, I agree.
in the world that is the world right now of events. I would say in the smallest venue or in the biggest festival. Well, for this job especially, where it's like so blurred between you're not first aid, you're not security, but you can't really intervene, but you can. It was a point that we wanted to raise, and I think it's important to raise it. I've not the answer of is it
Yeah,
good
yeah.
or is it bad, but sometimes recognition can
It's
can
helpful.
add
Can be helpful
add, yeah.
also. Sarah?
Give me this mic. No, I'm joking. So there are a lot of things that touch me, and I wanted to say also for the listeners that I'm really passionate about this about the care as a concept, as a notion, because it's really like my mission, but also in this job. And so there are two things. First of all, to just finish the argument about what have we have done in 4 years, I wanted to say that these work trainings, competencies, and the way how we work doesn't exist in other places in Europe. And I can confirm you that because
Yeah,
I
I know.
received, I received.
That's why I'm doing this podcast.
You know, I received the amount of training from, I don't know, the Fold Club in UK, in Italy. Doesn't exist. Like, doesn't. Every time that I have some Italian in front of me, they were shocked and amazed about how we are building this. And it's also in Spain, also in Berlin, yes, so you all hear very well. So we are actually very advanced on that. And I close this. So just to say that Belgium, I think that
Slay, yes.
is a pioneer. Is a pioneer. Let's say it. And then about the care team, what it is, I will not say, because like this, I will use this mic to sell my trainings. You want to know what is? You want to know what is a care team and this job? Come to a training. Okay. That's it. That's it. I will not say you come to me. And then, second of all, that for me is very important, and that Nathan said very well. For me, it's a bit surprising to hear people that worked in care that they say that they want to have a status. Let's take out the word care.
They want or they not don't.
They don't want. You
Okay,
said
yeah.
that there are people that they don't want. For me, I'm surprised.
Yeah, me
But
too.
let's just do an exercise. Care work. Let's take out the care, but the rest work.
No, but
In every work, in every job, like, and for me is a bit of, I'm sorry, I will say again, cultural appropriation, because I'm sure, and yes, I will do the statement, that are white people, because there are people sans papier without documents, that the only things that they want is, since 20 years, that the only things that they want is documents to be able to work. And then there are some people that they say, me, I don't want it. You are privileged, or then you are rich, or then you have other jobs. But believe me, that the people that do this as their main job, they really want this. They need this, because it's a job where there is a lot of responsibilities, a lot.
an insane amount of responsibilities for the
insane
listeners. Like literally, you cannot even realize how much you carry, like as a care team and safety worker.
And I would like to do also an example, because let's be concrete. We are in front of a door of a club, okay?
I know the example.
Okay. We are at the security. You know that the security agents, they can't, by law, ask for an identity card to people. So if it's a club where the people that are allowed needs to be 18, by the law, if you give alcohol to people that are not 18, by your club, you know, like you're not respecting the law. So you need to ask for that. The security agents, as their mission and role and competencies, they can't ask for the ID card. That's why there is also a care team. And this is just a little example of it. And believe me, that there is a big responsibility when you are at the door, that you need to see all the people that are in, and you need to see how they are, because of course it's your responsibility of who you make enter. If somebody is already completely intoxicated and something happened inside, is your responsibility. And in the meanwhile, you need to check so many things like the ID card. A lot of people also, they make fake ones. Yes, exist again, still, this. So again, there are so many responsibility, but also to work as a care team is very hostile. We work during the night. Believe me, that night shift, they completely change your hormone inside between your melatonin that doesn't know anymore how to kick in because you're working when actually you need to sleep. We work with 100 decibel of music, with no light and with light, in places where there are so many people with a medical dossier, cultural background, coming from so many different realities, and is a job where we are all the time in contact with people. So it's also a job that puts you in front of also certain things that concern yourself and your personal experience. That's why, for the responsibility and for the weight of this job, we need to have protection. Because if you do the stairs to go up in a club, to go in the toilet, and you fall, you don't have nothing.
Yeah.
So I think we should continue train. I think that the problem
and
is
to advocate for this.
Exactly, and the main problem is that the people, they are not trained really for this job. There are not really training, proper training, except mine. Sorry, I needed to.
No, go for it. Nathan, do you want to add something or no? Okay. About this, I just want to do a little shout out to Lynn, who came on the second podcast, who's launching in June the Observatoire Belge des métiers de la musique, which is a collective about lobbying nationally but also internationally the case of nightlife cultural workers and prevention and safety workers in all forms and context in nightlife. So a little shout out to her, because that was her response to the issue of legalization, found the legal status and stuff. She was like, actually, I'm gonna do my own and like lobby thing. So yeah, shout out to her. It's gonna be, I cannot wait to see what she has planned. We still have not a lot of time, so I wanted to ask, to go back a little bit, because you said going back was important. Care, for the people that already listened to the podcast, but those who didn't, care was a concept conceptualized by John Tronto and other authors in the 80s as a response of against like liberalistic individualism and liberal logics, especially around morality. And so they wanted to put back collective responsibility inside, like as a framework and as a way, as you said earlier, as a way of seeing the world and analyzing it and living it. And do you want to add?
No, it's
Okay.
very good.
Okay. And so I wondered, how do you feel like care teams and safety practices in clubs help rebuild a collective sense of responsibility, but also can it shift, like putting care teams and safety, care teams especially, shift the responsibility from the public, from the crowd, to the care team, at least shifting that responsibility away from the publics?
I will try to be short, because you mentioned John Tronto. I really advise everyone to read this book pour un monde vulnérable. And I wanted just to say that yes, John Tronto was one of the first ones that put in theory, the care, but doesn't mean that the care was not existing. Again, for me, it's important to say
we talked about it in the second podcast.
And that's why is for me an answer to your reply, meaning that the care was existing way before that we were talking about care.
Yeah, of course.
So the presence of a care team or not a care team will not impact this historically.
Okay.
Yeah. Meaning historically, but also now, because again, there are so many people, so many associations that works in different kind of dimension. I think about Lilo, that is working with people that have addiction. I'm talking with the Frida, a collective for queer Afro-descendant people with handicap. Like there are a lot of association, and I think this is the reason why I love Brussels, because there is a social tissue networking that is, for me, really crazy and doesn't exist in Europe. Like it's really a model for me still now, even if has been impacted. But also what I wanted to say is that for sure the care team is adding new ways also to interact with yourself. I think it's a reminding and is create a lot of awareness of the relation that we have with ourselves. And I think that the relation that we have with ourselves has a lot to do on how you consume the parties, how you consume products, or how you interact with the environment and the people. So I think that is a really good point. But also it's true that there are a lot of practices that have been appropriate, as we were saying before. So yes, I have the public that were coming to me saying, please, can you put out that person because did that? And actually I knew that it was not true. It's just because this person didn't like that person.
Yeah.
So for sure.
And also, like, we're literally like just hostesses because, like, they're like, oh yeah, or where are the toilets? I mean, look at the fucking sign.
Exactly.
Just look at the fucking sign.
So that's why I think that is very important to settle very well, like what is the care, what is, to talk about the definition, to also aware the people about how to search information, how to understand a certain kind of concept, and instead to do checklist of values, at the door. Don't do that the people that don't know. Let's talk about again about what is consent really. Like, let's create a communication that is more accessible. I think this is the thing that might help to reduce the risk of bad appropriation. But the risk is not zero.
Yeah, it's never zero. That's why we say safer space and not safe. Please, like the French listening, please stop saying safe. Like, I cannot. Anyways, that's another topic. Nathan?
Yeah, just to add something, because you were talking about the behavior and we were talking about the behavior of the crowd, and Sarah was talking about the competencies that are like not shifting but just adding more and more for the care teams. That is so true, and we talked about this a lot with Modus Vivendi. We see, especially for youth, that people, like in terms of mental health, it's like crazy. That's a topic we have.
Crazy bad.
That's like people in parties, especially youth, I would say, that would might be the main topic now, about like intervention in general when we are talking about Brussels by Night and Modus Vivendi. Of course, there's still a lot of problems in terms of sexual and gender-based violences and discriminations, but mental health, that's really something we have to address. That's definitely something. If we are talking about the behavior of the audience, of course, it's not. We are not here to just being les nounous. Of course, like care workers are not for that. But we see that there is a demand of like just people just en détresse a lot. So it's something that is adding, and it's not with less money that we will try to fix educational and like society problems in nightlife.
Yeah. Well, I think we can. Do you want to add something?
Just
last little
in
thing.
a positive thing. That's why it's so important and is amazing in the nightlife, because parties are still spaces
Of experimentation.
But where also different narratives are possible. And I think that is important also to remind that is in a society where it's quite difficult to create a relation that is healthy with yourself. For sure, we are overwhelmed. There is also different way to interact, but there are still spaces that are still there to remind that you're unique, that you're important, that you're beautiful, and that actually you are the person that can decide also how to manipulate these narratives.
Yeah,
Just
go
one
for it.
word, because I want to do a shout out to Pauline and Anna, because
Yeah.
they are working on the topic at Brussels by Night. So
Yeah.
Pauline
Shout out.
was working on the topic, and now it's Anna. So they are.
Shout out to those stars.
Yeah, true. Because I'm talking now, but they are chat.
man that take the light.
They were not available.
No, I invited him. It's because of me. But so yeah, I feel like this sums up pretty much the topic. I was gonna ask like the last question if like Belgium and Brussels was like a model for other cities in other countries, but we agreed on this. And so I want to thank GIMIC for this series. I hope to come back next year, maybe. Woo, we don't know. So yeah, don't hesitate to go back to the other episodes, which were the first about safer spaces, what is a safer space, etc., and especially in Brussels. What is a care team? What are care and safety practices for the second episode, and then. The third one was how do systemic violences take place in nightlife, and now here institutionalization. Yeah, that's it. I want to also thank all the people that joined. I'm not going to do the list because I know I'm going to forget people. And you too for coming today. It was super interesting. I love that you didn't agree on some stuff. So yeah, with my questions. So that was what I was looking for. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
And keep doing that because we need to talk more about this. This need to be normalized topic.
Well,
thank you so much.
I'm gonna do my thesis and then I'm gonna do some Instagram posts about this at least. Thank you so much for joining in or tuning in. This is the end of Safer Hours, a discovery of Brussels nightlife. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend. Yeah.